This is the explanation for question number 3 in practice problem set number 3. In this one, we're looking at spending and income. And when I say income, I'm talking about income and real GDP in the same way. So let's take a look at this. In the diagram below, illustrate how a reduction in government spending affects the expenditures function. Now, sometimes the expenditures function is called the consumption function, and you're going to get more information about this in my PowerPoint and in the Kennedy textbook. In particular, the appendix. I have it right here. Where is it? Right here. The appendix 5.3, the 45 degree line diagram, and that's basically what you see here. Now let me just go over this a little bit. What we're seeing here is we're seeing two variables. We're looking at spending and we're looking at income, or sometimes also looked at as real GDP. And this 45 degree line is only used as a reference guide. What this 45 degree line represents is when you make a certain amount of income, and by the way, always start with income. So let's say you earn this amount right here. If you go up to the 45 degree line, this yellow line right here, this basically tells you that you're spending all of your income. Now, what if you were right here, and you were spending, you earned this much, but if you spent more than that, that means you spent all of your income and you had to either dip into credit or savings. So whenever you have an actual spending amount that's above the 45 degree line, that simply means that you are spending more than your income. Now let's introduce this line, the blue line. This line actually shows actual spending. So 45 degree line is only a reference point to show you when spending and income are equal. For example, I'll do it one more time. Let's say your income is right here. If I go up to the 45 degree line and go over to here, that simply means this level of spending is consistent with this level of income. You're spending all of your income. Now this 45 degree line shows actual spending based upon different income. Now notice how this spending line crosses the vertical axis right here. So this says when income, right here, when income is 0, you're still spending a positive amount. This is called autonomous spending. Autonomous spending is spending that's not linked to income. And think about it. If you lost your job and your income drops to 0, you still have to spend money to eat, to pay your rent. Now, where's that money coming from? It's either coming from credit or from savings. So that's why this 45 degree, this blue line crosses the vertical axis at a positive amount, even though income is 0. So now let's look at this line right here. Now let's take a look at this income right here. This income level says you're spending this amount, which means, notice how this blue line is above the 45 degree line at this income, which means you must be dipping into your savings or accessing credit. So when this blue line is above the 45 degree line, that's called dissavings. In other words, you're spending more than your income. When the blue line is below the 45 degree line, that means you must be saving some of your income. For example, let's say you're earning this much right here. If I go up to here, that means I'm spending this much. But notice how if I were to spend all my income, I would have to go up to here to spend all my income. So the vertical distance between the 45 degree line and this blue line, that's the amount of savings that's taking place at this level of income. So let's go back to this question. So in the diagram below, illustrate how a reduction in government spending affects expenditure functions. Well, a reduction in government spending, this is all spending right here. And government spending has nothing to do with income. So that means you're reducing an autonomous level of spending. And that simply means this is a downward shift of the 45-degree line. And to show you that, I have it right here. Oops. It's going to look like this. So a reduction in government spending reduces overall spending. Remember, this 45-degree line, excuse me, I keep saying 45-degree line. This line right here is all spending. And it simply would shift downward, and you would have a new intersection right here. So let's go back to 3b. Now this time I'm asking you to use the aggregate supply, aggregate demand diagram. So use an aggregate supply, aggregate demand diagram. Illustrate the effects that a reduction in government spending has on the equilibrium level of output and price. So in other words, I'm asking you to do the same scenario, but not use this the expenditures function diagram. I'm asking you to do it with an aggregate supply and aggregate demand diagram. And it's going to look like this. Oops. Sorry. So here's our aggregate supply. Here is our aggregate demand. Now, if we're reducing government spending is a source of demand. And that's going to be a leftward shift of the aggregate demand curve. And it's going to shift the demand curve to the left. To the left. I have it downward, but it's to the left. And you can see the old equilibrium with the aggregate supply and the old aggregate demand, we had an output level of this much and a price level of this much. When you shift the demand curve over to the left, you have a new equilibrium price, which is lower, and a new equilibrium level of output, which is also lower. And that's how you basically illustrate that with aggregate supply and aggregate demand. Now, 3C. Assume a consumption function in the scenario as described. So this consumption function shows you how much you're spending, C, based upon your income, Y, your marginal propensity to consume, that's 0.75. Now what's that mean? That means for every dollar you get in additional income, you're going to spend 75 cents of it, which means you're going to save 25 cents of the other one. And this 6 billion, that's spending not dependent upon income. So what this consumption function will tell us is if you plug in income for Y, multiply by 0.75, add 6 billion, it's going to tell you how much spending is taking place given a certain level of income. So if government reduced its spending by $500 million, how much would nominal GDP change? To answer this question, you need to know that the fiscal multiplier, which is 1 over 1 minus MPC, and again, 0.75 is MPC. And I give you a reference. Oh, by the way, this is misspelled. I'm sorry. In the Kennedy book to go over this. And basically, it's going to look like this. The fiscal multiplier is going to be 1 over 1 minus MPC, and that's going to be 1 over 1 minus 0.75, which is 4. That's the fiscal multiplier. That means for every dollar that of increase in government spending, demand will increase by a factor of 4. And so we have the change in GDP is going to be the change in government spending, which is $500 million, times the fiscal multiplier, which is 4. That means demand will shift to the left by a total of $2 billion. Not a half a billion, which is the reduction of government spending, is going to shift by more than that, because once the government reduces its spending by half a billion, it's going to cause a fall of income for some people because this government is spending less, and that means they're going to spend less, which is going to cause a fall in income for other people, and this is going to reduce spending multiple times by a factor of 4, and that's how much demand will shift to the left.